when he's doing all of his other studies, he just, I think I'll play the piano. I don't have that kind of talent. He's so darn cute. Smiler. Sorry, got distracted. That's what babies do. This week we're going for Advent week number 2. And it is Mighty God. And we're going through Isaiah 9:6. That's what we've chosen as our frame for our Advent season. And it's for a child is born to us, a son is given to us, the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And this was written by Isaiah, obviously. And it was a way for us to identify who the Messiah would be. Because there's a lot of messiahs and a lot of people claiming to have divine gifts and revelations and all kinds of stuff. But this combination is something that you're not going to find except in one place. And it started last week with Wonderful Counselor, someone who is empathetic and listens and cares about you, is willing to give themselves to you, to sacrifice, which is the most important thing, because you can have a mighty God who is absolutely tyrannical. You can have an everlasting, permanent Father who's not nice. And you can have a Prince of Peace that peace is only meant to be the way I want things. They don't listen to anything that you have to say. They're not empathetic at all to your plight. They tax you until you don't have a dime left. And it's peace, and they call that safety and peace, security and peace. And so Jesus has all these attributes. And so Mighty God is what we're thinking about this week. And God is not God's name. His name is Yahweh. God is like a category. Back when this was written, there were a lot of different gods. And so they had the word God, which just meant this is the category like pastor. Mighty pastor, It would be, it's just a name. The name that we were given to identify with is Yahweh. And so, but we were looking for someone, Messiah, who was a God. Mighty. Who couldn't be beaten. That the world could not stop him. Nothing could stop him. He had all power. He was mighty. And so the word mighty becomes the most important part of this category and of this name. And this is mighty when he was writing it in Hebrew. I'll just get this out of the way. Doesn't that look like an IU on that dude's? Just saying. Just picked it randomly. I'm like, wow. But it's strength and power, hero, a warrior. And the Hebrew word is Gabor, which don't ever remember that. But the reason it was used first in Genesis 6 when their odd things happened and they had offspring and they were the mighty warriors of the time. They were violent people who developed the cities of blood. But they were called Gabor. And it was related to humans. So a lot of times when you relate strength and power and a hero and a warrior to a human, that's what you get. You get kind of the exaggerated gear, which you need in battle when someone's trying to kill you. Crazy horse. All horses were war horses. And so that's what a human would look like. But Isaiah is telling us that first he was a compassionate person. And that doesn't conjure up any image of being compassionate. Would not want to go to that guy and say anything that was against what he thought was right. Because he'd brand me with that UI, that IU on his helmet. And so somebody came along that was different though. And it was Jesus. And that's when he announced that he was the Messiah. He did it on a donkey. In Zechariah 9:9 it says, "Look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and victorious, yet he is humble, riding on a donkey, riding on a donkey's colt. Take it down a level. And kings did ride on donkeys. Like if you were in a relationship with the Assyrians, the mighty empire, or the Babylonians, any giant empire, and you were just a king who didn't want to lose your country, you wanted to be in a relationship, you paid them money, you did everything so you wouldn't get taken over. When they gave a parade for you, you would ride a donkey in. Because a horse was a sign of war, a sign of conquest, a sign of violence. It was like, I'm the man. And so kings would ride donkeys in, like if they were going to visit the dignitary of a foreign power, of the empire. Because they didn't want to try to show up the king of the Babylonians, which would not end well, or the king of Assyrians, which would not end well. And so Jesus also was making a statement that he was humble. He's not here to take over this world. And the Jews couldn't understand it because they totally expected him to just banish and get rid of the Romans. That's why they couldn't really see what was going on, because they'd been promised the Messiah who was going to restore Israel. They just didn't know that that included the world and everybody in it, all the people. And so this threw them. They knew what he was saying because it had been prophesied. They just didn't think, they thought it was exclusively, he would be humble to the way I thought. Yeah, he would be humble and give in to the people, the religious leaders and the government of Israel. But that's not what he meant. But still, there's a contrast here that you really have to understand, or else you have to be able to divide in your mind these two categories. Because one of the categories is 100% world. 100% attributed to man. Power, strength, hero, warrior. And it becomes almost a character. And Jesus came in on a donkey, showing where true strength was, where true power was, where a hero was. And these are things I think sometimes we have a hard time understanding. Because the world is ever in our face. Ever in our face. And the thought that you would ride a donkey when you were the king, the true king, doesn't make sense. It should make sense. Except if you're just being humble and you believe in it. You believe that this is the road to true power. And Jesus did. And I only say it in a serious manner because if you don't understand the differentiation, then in your mind you're just going to play world values and call it Jesus. And it's not. It's not. You're going to play the world's games. You're going to judge each other by the world's values. You're going to judge yourself by worldly values. And you're going to be riding a horse and Jesus is riding a donkey. And that's just, everything starts to make sense because if you look at power, see, power is, in a Christian sense, is you don't let the world change you. You change the world. Not going to play the world's games. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You change the world. This was Jesus being enthroned as king. For Christ also suffered for our sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you, me, to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit. See, it looks like the powers killed him, but he had the true power, and so they were killing themselves. He changed the world. That's what power is. And again, that category shift, understanding when he says pick up our cross, invites us to pick up our cross. That's what that means. It's a belief in this, that actually standing down in these situations is actually the most powerful thing to do. Doesn't make any sense. It can't make sense because we're human. But you have to wrestle with the fact that the man who could raise people from the dead, the man who could heal people, the man who could summon billions of angels at any moment to stop with the narrative that was going on, he died on a cross. He said, "Not my will, Father, but your will." And you must struggle with the contradiction in that. And then you struggle with that to look at yourself, to see where the world is pressing in on you rather than you pressing into the world. And that's what mighty God is all about. It is that freakish dude with all the stuff, but it's that caricature of power is found in giving yourself over, not trying to demand your way, trying to figure out how everyone else should live, when this should confuse you all to heck. Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. The way I was raised. And so you're looking for a hero who possesses these things. In Mark 7, 1 through 23, just quick characterization of a long story. I ain't going to read it. The Pharisees, the religious law people, came up to Jesus one day and on the side said, "You know, I noticed that your disciples don't wash their hands before they eat." Which is gross. I get it. But they were talking about traditions. And they were talking about ceremonies. And you got to stay with me here. We'll get back to the sermon. And Jesus was like, this is where he says, "You hypocrites, you teach man-made laws as if they're from God." And he brought it into the washing of the hands. And he said, and then they got into a big debate about tradition and stuff. But what was going on here was, what humans do is, it's called chumrah. They build a fence around the law. That way they can't break the law. Like in the garden, you can hear Eve say it. She said, when he said, "You can't eat the apple," or whatever, and she was like, "No, we can eat anything, but we can't eat from that tree. We can't even touch it," which is a fence around the law. There was no law that said she couldn't touch it. It's like it says in there that if you choose a church leader, should not be a heavy drinker. So they've taken that suggestion, and then people have turned it into a law where you don't drink at all. Because what if we hire a heavy drink? What's a heavy drinker? What if we hire one, and then we're in the, it's like, no, it's not what it says. The law is don't hire a heavy drinker. It's not even a law. It's a suggestion by Paul to Timothy. That's what we always do. And so then what happens is we start to engage the fence rather than the law. We start to judge each other by the fence rather than by the law. And so this is the problem, what Jesus was talking about with washing hands. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, the law to wash hands only applied to priests and Levites in the Jewish thing. They took it and they said, well, if only the priests and the Levites can wash their hands, it would be better if we had everybody have to wash their hands before they ate in this ceremonial way. That's what Jesus was addressing when he said, you teach traditions, they have nothing to do with anything. And you judge people by them. And here's the problem. What he was also saying was, he said this 3 times in like 20 verses. Jesus called the crowd, come in here. All you listen and try to understand. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You're defiled by what comes out from your heart. There's nothing outside of yourself that can defile you. Even though, it's funny though, right? We all have this sense of guilt about us. And so we all have this sense of incompleteness about us. And so we do everything we can to wash our hands, metaphorically, do our business, dress the right way, say the right things, get the right money, act the right way in your culture. Do all of these things to try to make ourselves feel right. To try to make ourselves feel like we're part of the group. And we ignore this fact. It's inside of you. That's where the discomfort is. You could wash your hands till your flesh was gone, and you're still not going to change here. And here is, I want to point this out. The Christian heart is a divided heart, according to Galatians, okay? You have good desires and you have bad desires. Okay? When we think that we can outwardly make ourselves feel comfortable, feel smoothed out, we can't. You're being lied to. You could follow every rule until it was whatever. Doesn't make you better. You can't. It can't, or Jesus died for nothing. And that's why Jesus is the hero. He came and died in our place to fix the broken hearts that we all have, the fractured hearts that we all have, to give us an opportunity to hear the voice of God through the Holy Spirit and not try to do things to make ourselves feel better about ourselves and lie to ourselves. There's only one person who could do that, and that was God in flesh. And that's not to say, again, that you don't live, but your living comes out of the knowledge that you're not better if you do, and you're not worse if you don't. The one thing that gives you value is Jesus dying for you and rising from the dead. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. I don't care how clean your hands are. And washing the hands, this is why Jesus said this. Try to understand, because everything we do and judge each other by is based on exterior things, because we don't know each other's heart. It's all a lie. You don't know my heart. I don't know your heart. What we have is a desire for Jesus. What we have is a resolve to love each other and agree that we're different, and then we unite to serve our community in Jesus' name. That's it. He's our hero that did that. He's the hero who did that. And he was just a baby. He was just a baby. And just so you think that becoming a human baby was easy for him, it says this is his warrior attitude. It said, though he was God, Jesus did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Just think about that. What do you cling to make sure that you feel good? What are the things you will not let go of? And I'm not even talking physical. What mental things will you not let go of so that you feel comfortable and you feel like you're on target and you feel like you're going down the path, even though you know Jesus is the path? We all have them, so I'm not asking for a show of hands. I'm just saying, you can't fool me because I got them. And I can't fool you because you got them. It's part of being a human. Jesus was God. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm God, but you know what? I love these people. Doesn't matter. Going to be born as a baby, going to die on a cross. It says he took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. That's what a warrior does. If you're a warrior and you get called into a battle, you leave your home behind. You're not going to go out to eat, You're in a foreign country. You're battling for the lives of people around you. You know what I mean? You're not going to go out anywhere. You're a warrior. And that's what Jesus is. He said, I didn't come here to be served like I should be. I came here to serve others. I'm not looking out for myself. I'm looking out for you. That's the kind of warrior you want on your walls. You want somebody who has you as the priority, not me. And I'm not a warrior, so I'm not talking about it. That's what Jesus did. And the reality that the greatest human strength is just weakness to God. In fact, if you think about what we call human strength in these categories, power, strength, hero, warrior, in a human capacity, these are attributes that are only measured from one human to another. You can only be powerful if you're measuring one human to another human. Because you have to recognize the absurdity of you calling yourself powerful and comparing yourself to God. It would just be like fatal argument, sir. I'm sorry about that. I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. Yeah, you're strong, but only compared to another human. Not compared to God. That's why Jesus could ride in on a donkey. No diminishment of value, no diminishment of strength, no diminishment of life, nothing. Because he was God. He doesn't need props from humans. He doesn't care what other people think about him. He doesn't care if he dresses right. He doesn't care if he talks right. He doesn't care about any of that. Because he's settled. He's as valuable as he can be. He cannot be more valuable. Even if he put on his cool thing and rode around on a horse and all that stuff. That's just a show for humanity. That's a show for other humans. So you can fear me. You can fear me. You can respect me. You can think well of me. That's what humans do to each other. Because we've got to get that settled so that other humans think about us. Because if you try to bring your great projects and your great accomplishments to God, and he's like, well, yeah, that's great. But guess what? I was God, and I came to earth as a baby, and I took the humble position as a human, and then I was a slave, and then I died on a cross. That's power. That's power. The giving of yourself to something bigger than yourself. The picking up of the cross. And it doesn't make sense. It can't make sense. Because none of us do it. None of us do it. It's just forever that we worry about what people think of us. And we put on all our whatever, and we put up our fronts, and we walk the way we walk, and talk the way we talk, so that other humans will think about us. Because you can't be weak out there in the world. Right? You can't be like Jesus. And that's part of the reason that Jesus is the hero and Jesus is the warrior, because it's our faith in him now that inspires us and motivates us. And through our faith in him is how we mature. And slowly but surely, when you're really old, you go, oh, patience, yeah. And then you have to question yourself, am I really patient, or have I just lost all my care? I don't care. I don't have any energy left to do anything. And so you call it patience. There's no strength that you can equal to God. And in your mind, if you think you're doing something really cool and impressing God, you've got to check yourself. You've got to check yourself, because you're not. Jesus is the God of strength. Jesus is the God of power. Jesus is our hero who came down to do inside of us, in our hearts, what nobody else could do. He saved us. He saved us. Why? Because he loved us. God so loved the world that Jesus came down. He was God. Didn't matter. Not going to stop me from saving the ones I love. I'm well off, I got to admit it. Still going to give my life to save the ones I love. He's our warrior. what you want is someone who will fight for you. You want someone who can fight for you that can win, first of all, because you'll just be second if you can't win. But you know what I mean? No one could do what Jesus did. No one could do what Jesus did. Jesus is the mighty God. Jesus is the mighty God. And the name that Isaiah was telling them to look for on his first appearance was this. He's a wonderful counselor. Humble, listening, empathetic, wise. He's a mighty God. Rides in on a donkey. Rides in on a donkey. He tells you, I can cure your heart. And I'm born. I gave up what I gave up to be part of your world, which is all God wants, by the way. If you want to look at a real theology, look at Emmanuel, God with us theology, because that's all he wants. From the beginning to the end, he wants to live with us and to run the earth through us so that it's run properly. So we're going to sing O Holy Night, which is hymn number 195. We're only going to sing the first verse. I didn't even realize I didn't know the second verse of Oh Come All Ye Faithful. I was like, what words are those? And truly, he did teach us to love one another. But we don't have to sing that whole second verse. You guys, I'll see you next week. Happy trails to all of you guys.